A movie franchise at the pinnacle of pop culture resonance adapted into a Saturday morning cartoon that replaced the metaphorical magic of the movie-going experience with literal magic, cut short by the collapse of the system and the franchise that enabled it. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of The Karate Kid. Thank you to 80stees.com for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below and use code TOYGALAXY to get 30% off your order today. 80stees.com started off as the source for t-shirts inspired by all things pop culture from the 1980s, but there's more to the 80s than just the 80s. They've got shirts inspired by the 70s, the decade that paved the way for the 80s. They've got shirts inspired by the 90s, the decade that carried on the legacy of the 80s. They've got shirts inspired by the 2000s, because the 80s isn't just a decade, it's a state of mind. Whether your interests are laser focused on one thing, say movies, there's plenty of choices from Jaws to Shaun of the Dead. If your interests bounce around, they've got shirts from cartoons to video games, superheroes to music and wrestling. From Transformers to Dungeons & Dragons, Gollum to Ron Burgundy, Darkwing Duck to Powerpuff Girls, from Pong to Street Fighter II. Their goal is to have something for everyone that loves retro pop culture. Whether your favorite cartoon is Gem and the Holograms or Robotech, or your favorite movie is The Karate Kid or 16 Candles, you'll find something you love. Click the link below and use code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order today. Again, that's code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order. Thanks again to 80stees.com. The Karate Kid is an animated series that ran 13 episodes over one season from September to December of 1989, based on the movie series of the same name. It was a co-production of Deke Enterprises and Saban Entertainment at a time when their professional relationship was waxing on and off. Daniel LaRusso is a kid who is learning karate from Mr. Miyagi, a wise master of the martial art and surrogate father figure. It's not all kicking and punching, as Daniel is frequently reminded that karate is more about what's in your heart and your mind than what's in your feet and fists. It's just a normal day of karate training in Japan for Daniel, Mr. Miyagi, and their friend Taki when suddenly a masked figure steals a small decorative shrine from their temple. The three heroes immediately set off in pursuit of the thief, which results in a series of adventures that take them around the globe and back. They've got to get the shrine back because it possesses incredible magic of unknown source and scale. Who built it? Where did it come from? What is the extent of the magic contained therein? And why does it always seem to get used for evil instead of good? Who cares? The only thing that matters is locating the shrine and getting it back into the right hands as soon as possible, because the shrine is really just a MacGuffin for life lessons to be learned from people and cultures all over the world that will one day help Daniel to become the best Karate Kid he can be. The Karate Kid, the movie, kicked off the franchise in 1984. Daniel LaRusso is a teenager who moved from Newark, New Jersey to Reseda, Los Angeles, California with his mother. After getting beat up at school, Daniel is befriended by Mr. Miyagi, the maintenance guy at their apartment complex. Mr. Miyagi happens to be a master of karate and agrees to teach Daniel so he can enter the All-Valley Karate Tournament and, hopefully, get the bullies at Cobra Kai dojo to leave him alone. Daniel's training with Mr. Miyagi helps him find balance at school, at home, emotionally, and physically as he practices the martial art. It starred Ralph Macchio as Daniel and Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi, written by Robert Mark Kamen and directed by John G. Avildsen. It was a box office and critical success, raking in over $90 million. That success meant a sequel was practically guaranteed, and The Karate Kid Part 2 followed 2 years later in 1986. It picked up immediately after the first film, with Daniel and Mr. Miyagi traveling to Mr. Miyagi's ancestral home in Okinawa, Japan, after Miyagi receives word that his father is dying. Together they help Miyagi's ancestral village regain the rights to their land, reignite old romances, and learn an ancient karate technique for Daniel to use in his final battle against the son of a local industrialist and sworn lifelong enemy of Mr. Miyagi. The sequel delivered an even bigger box office than the first film and guaranteed that the franchise would continue for at least one more chapter.
TikTok, it's tough guy o'clock.
Intentionally or not, Karate Kid Part 2 also established a template of the Daniel-Mr. Miyagi duo traveling the world, solving problems, and learning life lessons together. It acted as the chronological starting point for the animated series that began production at the same time as the second sequel, Karate Kid Part 3. Columbia Pictures teamed up with the US branch of French animation studio Deke Entertainment for what seemed like an obvious subject to adapt into a cartoon given its popularity and the existence of a toy line already on shelves. The mainstream pop culture phenomenon to Saturday morning cartoon pipeline was already well established, with Deke having played a major role. By 1987, Deke Entertainment had a portfolio of television series and films going back to the 70s that included hits like Inspector Gadget, Kid Video, Heathcliff, Jason, the Wheeled Warriors, and Mask, and some misses like like Wolf Rock TV and Photon. Deke had already adapted another 1984 movie, Ghostbusters, as a 1986 cartoon, The Real Ghostbusters. They were one of the prime players in the kids' animation industry, infamous for their ruthlessly low production costs achieved through anti-union practices, hiring temporary workers, outsourcing production overseas, and consistently underbidding projects to purposely prevent the competition from getting the jobs.
Everybody's so creative.
Deke came to be known for D doing, I it, C cheaper. Deke doing it cheaper. Any shortage in the budget was patched with the money from the next job, and there was always a next job. Until there wasn't. In the late 80s, the US kids television syndication market reached a point of saturation. More shows had been produced by Deke and other studios than there were time slots to air them. Confident Deke's future was full of continued infinite growth, Deke grossly oversold their own stock, and in 1986, Deke's head of US operations Andy Hayward teamed up with investment firm Bear Stearns to execute a leveraged buyout of Deke from its founder Jean Chalopin. In 1987, to relieve some of that debt incurred by the purchase, Hayward sold off the foreign rights to Deke's library to frequent collaborator Saban Entertainment. Saban and Deke continued to partner on a comprehensive slate of entertainment media over the next several years until Saban sold Deke's foreign rights back to Jean Chalopin, a move that created a personal rift between Hayward and Saban that contaminated their professional relationship. And then the children's syndicated television market collapsed, which left animation studios who already had projects in development searching for a network to purchase their show outright.
Damn, we're in a tight spot.
It was amidst all of this that the Karate Kid movie franchise was adapted for television, and likely the reason that the original order of 65 daily episodes intended for syndication in the fall of 1988 was not only shifted to 1989, but also shaved down to 13 weekly episodes now airing on Saturday mornings on NBC.
From the film Karate Kid 2, Hornby are proud to present the stars. Meet Daniel, the Karate Kid, his mentor, Miyagi, and his latest foe, Chozen. Plus, of course, their arch-enemies, Johnny, Sato, and Kreese. Each tri-action Karate Kid figure can chop, twist, or kick. And to help the Karate Kid master his art, there's a training center complete with Attack Alley, where you come face-to-face with the enemy. Karate Kid 2, available for video rental. Its stars now available from Hornby.
Developed by Dan DiStefano, a seasoned animation writer and producer on shows like Sectars, Laser Tag Academy, Mr. T, and also another separate show called Alf. With a third Karate Kid film in production, it needed to be clear that this wasn't part of the existing live-action franchise. A new MacGuffin, a magical shrine statue, was created to motivate the plot and give both Daniel and Mr. Miyagi a reason to travel the world, and to introduce some real magic and mystery, something that wouldn't fly in the movies but was necessary to compete on Saturday mornings. Whether the writers ever intended for Daniel, Miyagi, and their teenage friend Taki to actually recover the shrine was irrelevant. What mattered was the adventures they went on in their attempts to bring it home. The theme song was composed by Saban and Shuki Levy. The voice cast featured Pat Morita as a narrator at the beginning of the episodes, but recast Mr. Miyagi and Daniel LaRusso for the series out of consideration for the budget and production schedule. For the animated series, Daniel was played by Joey DiDio, Mr. Miyagi was played by Robert Ito, Taki was played by Janice Kawai, and the rest of the cast was filled in by some of the most prolific and recognizable voices in the industry throughout the 80s and 90s in various roles from episode to episode as the heroes traveled the world. Despite being an adaptation of a hit film franchise heading into its third chapter, the Karate Kid cartoon was canceled after a single season on NBC. Unable to defeat ABC's counter-programming, The Real Ghostbusters followed by Beetlejuice, and CBS's Pee-wee's Playhouse followed by Rude Dog and the Dweebs. It didn't help that the Karate Kid toy line produced by Remco in 1986 was only loosely related and either off shelves or in clearance bins by the time the series aired in 1989. 2 waves of 11 figures total, but only 6 actual characters. And of those 6 characters, only Daniel and Mr. Miyagi actually appeared in the cartoon. A 7th character, the Ref, was included with the Competition Center playset. Auto-release tri-action features which allowed the figures to kick, punch, turn, along with breakable accessories like logs and ice blocks would have all worked perfectly as a tie-in to the series. As it was, there was very little licensed merchandise to support the series beyond lunchboxes from Thermos. Like the Toys, a video game was released prior to the cartoon. In 1987, LGN published The Karate Kid for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Developed by Atlas, it's based on events in the Karate Kid Part 2 and therefore could be thought of as a prequel to the animated series. 1989's Karate Kid Part 3 underperformed relative to the previous 2 chapters and marked the end of the Daniel LaRusso trilogy of films, but not the franchise itself. It underperformed again in 1994 with Mr. Miyagi teaching karate to the next Karate Kid, this time Hilary Swank as Julie Pierce. In 2007, Ralph Macchio reprised his role as Daniel LaRusso in a music video for the song Sweep the Leg by the band No More Kings. Written and directed by William Zabka, it imagined a potential epilogue for the franchise depicting Zabka's own character, Johnny Lawrence, as a washed-up failure and ultimately hit by a car driven by LaRusso. After a failed attempt to reboot the franchise in 2010 with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith, the franchise was dormant until 2018 when Cobra Kai began airing here on YouTube before jumping to Netflix. An official continuation of the 4 films in the Miyagi-verse, it also picks up with a washed-up, failed Johnny Lawrence, and this time, Daniel LaRusso runs him over with a chain of successful car dealerships. Because we live in an era where stupid things matter, fans online wondered out loud if the 1989 cartoon was canon within the world of the 4 films and the Cobra Kai series, to which Cobra Kai co-creator John Hurwitz tweeted, "The Karate Kid cartoon is not canon, but there is an Easter egg from it in Season 3. And as of this video, the search is on for the star of the next Karate Kid movie, the 6th iteration of the franchise on screen. At this early stage, it appears Ralph Macchio will be back as Daniel LaRusso, with Jackie Chan returning as Mr. Han, the role he played in the 2010 film, previously not considered part of the Miyagi-verse. If that can change, perhaps there is hope for Taki and the animated series." That the Karate Kid animated series existed at all speaks to the power of a pop culture phenomenon, the heights it can reach, and the incredible speed at which it can rise and fall. It was a show that taught us that the real magical shrine was the adventures we took, and its power was the lessons we learned and the friends we made along the way. I almost cried at that end.
Me too. I got a little misty.
Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are, if you're in the position to help the channel grow. If you would like early access to the videos ad-free, as well as behind-the-scenes features, sneak peeks at upcoming projects, and exclusive monthly podcast about the show, please visit our Patreon, patreon.com/toygalaxy, and let us know in the comments down below if you were ever involved with the martial arts. I tried to take Taekwondo one year, but stopped when I found out I had to pay for it. Seems like the most unbelievable thing about the Karate Kid was being able to befriend a benevolent martial arts master who was willing to train you for free. Although, in the dojo owner's defense, I never offered to wash his car and sand his deck every day for an entire summer. He said I had really long legs.